your tryout begin? I want somebody to give me that answer. Somebody speak up. When you woke up this morning, when else? When you started training, young men, your tryout started when you took your first breath.
Welcome to another episode of a different basketball podcast. My name is Jordan Mount. Today I'm joined by Will Hanley, who runs the Big Three Instagram account. Not affiliated with Big Three, but he does run the account. Man, Will, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, this is good, man. I was actually just wanting to touch, Big Three and TBL. They have some crossover going on. Maybe you can touch on that a little bit. What do you know about TBL and what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, so I think my first introduction to the TBL was through Andre Owens and the Indy Express, right? And sort of Robert Vaden and all those guys. So I know actually it's a funny story. Andre Owens reached out to me when he started it, and he wanted me to help sort of promote the tryouts that they were having in the league games and to try and help them find sponsorships. And then COVID happened, so I didn't really get too far with that, but it led me to do some digging on the TBL, and what I found I really liked. You guys are giving a legitimate opportunity for these basketball players to get jobs, if not in America, but overseas, get some more eyes on them. And I think, I talk about it all the time with the Big Three and with all those guys. We have a surplus of basketball talent in this country, or if you want to look even larger, in this world, and there's just simply not enough spots in the NBA. So the fact that you guys are providing a platform for those guys to get minutes, to get looks, to get eyes on them, and to get playing opportunity while they're still, while they're still in their athletic prime, while they're still able to move up and down the court, it's a really cool thing.
No, I agree, man. I know that I was playing the other day, and this guy was talking to me, and he said that he's like, I've just gotten really tired of going overseas. He's like, I kind of want to stay home, and he said, TBL is a huge option for me. He played in like Puerto Rico and other places in South America. He's just like, man, sometimes you just get tired of going overseas for a whole year. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
For a
for
whole
sure.
8 months, and I think that's an opportunity that people can capitalize on. Did you hear TBL before Andre, or have anything kind of like that, or no?
Yeah, so I'll be honest, I really didn't. That was my first introduction to it. It definitely, it looked familiar, when he saw it to me. I kind of knew that he was doing something, but I think once Andre reached out to me and once I understood exactly what the Indy Express was, the purpose of it is very familiar because from the way the TBL explained themselves and their mission and their goals, it's very similar to the Big Three's goals. So what they were trying to do was definitely familiar, but the league itself, I had not been familiar with.
Yeah, no, I think it's good. I think there's a lot of crossover. Definitely a lot of guys that can play in this league. But I want to talk to you a little bit about Big Three too. How did you get started with the Instagram page, and then obviously you have your own podcast too? Is that right?
Yes, yeah. So we have the Fourth Man podcast. It was something that I didn't start. My co-host Anthony started, and I was just lucky enough that he brought me on. So yeah, so we're on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Big Three News. It's BIG3N3WS. I thought making the E was the 3 was cool back then, but it basically started in 2017. I was a college kid. I really wanted to get a job in sports marketing, sports communications, that type of field, but nobody would hire me. So I was like, okay, well, I'm either going to sit around and wait, and I was scrolling through Twitter, scrolling on the TL, and you see, just about everybody and their mother is making basketball content nowadays, especially for the NBA. So I was like, okay, I could definitely do this, but if I'm going to do it, I need to do something different. So at the time, the timing just worked out right. The Big Three was coming out. They had just been announcing, sort of the idea of what the landscape was going to look like and the rule set. So I said, you know what, I think I'm going to hop on this. So I've been very lucky that the Big Three has been successful, compared to my co-host Anthony, does a podcast with me. He originally wasn't doing the Big Three. Originally, the first podcast that he had going on was an Alliance of American Football podcast, which didn't last very long.
Right.
But other than that, we've just been very lucky that the Big Three has been around for as long as it has, and we've sort of grown in congruence with the league. And so, yeah, so then just from then, it's kind of been a crazy ride. I've gotten the opportunity to meet a lot of guys, over, in person or just over social media, guys that I would never thought, I would ever meet in my life because I'm used to watching these guys on TV. And I will say a lot of the guys who play in the big three, most of the guys are very down to earth. They're very humble guys, even the big names, the Joe Johnsons, the Mike Bibbies, the Rashard Lewises. I think the thing that I've learned the most is that, these professional athletes, when you see them on TV, it's very easy to idolize them. It's very easy to say, oh my God, like I can't even relate to these people. They're just these superhumans, but really just through meeting them, I've realized that they're just humble, hardworking, just average guys. They just happen to be, 6'5", 250 pounds, and can jump 10 feet. But yeah, so that it's been a crazy journey.
No, it is interesting because when you grow up, and if you don't grow up around the NBA, or your dad's not a coach or whatever, your mom's involved with stuff, or you have friends that are playing in the league, like you really don't understand until you finally meet them. I think I started meeting NBA players. I was probably 16. I was around high Division I players, Mason Plumley, a few times, and obviously he plays in the NBA now. But when you get around these guys that already play in the league, you're like, oh wow, they're just regular dudes. It's not a big deal that they're playing in the league. And a lot of them tell me, I'm like, oh man, you play in the league, blah blah blah. He's like, I don't really mean much, to be honest. I said I make a lot of money playing basketball, but it really doesn't mean much socially. So so that's obviously cool to see. I'm actually curious. So the big three, I'm not exactly quite sure how it's all set up. I've done my research a little bit. I know they stay in really nice hotels or traveling around to different venues. So obviously, so the big three is it's like they have one event in each city, and there's like 10 events. Is that right?
Yeah. So basically, so last season they did it a little bit differently. So for the first 2 years, well, actually, before I even get into that, just because you brought him up, I have a funny story about Mason Plumley. If you'll allow me to divert.
Yeah, let's hear about. Hey, wait, if it's bad, I can't.
It's not bad at all. Actually, it's actually really cool. So one of the big three events that I went to in 2019 was in the Barclays Center. So me and my friend went because I needed just some help, just someone that, I didn't want to go alone, basically. So we were able to go as media members. We were able to, do post-game interviews, things like that. And where we were sitting was basically just, it was basically courtside, like a little bit behind there. So there was a ton of basketball players, celebrities and stuff. So I was like, my friend was like, what are we going to do? Like with all these people, like, are we really just going to go up and like start introducing ourselves? Just being like, oh, like we're a big fan or whatever. So I'm like, let's do this. I'm like, these people meet God knows how many people every day, right? Like, I'm like, let's go up to these people if we want to meet somebody and pretend like they should know who we are. And then let's just see what happens. So who's sitting there courtside as we're walking back and forth? Mason Plumley. So I'm like, I think that's Mason Plumley. My friend's like, I think you're right. So we go over. So I'm like, Mason, how you doing? And I shake his hand, and my friend shakes his hand. He's like, hey, Mason, good to see you again. He goes, oh, good to see you guys too. How you doing? We're like, oh, we're doing all right. You enjoying the game? Yeah. All right, take it easy.
That's good.
So that was that's, I guess, my advice for people who are around a lot of celebrities, but it definitely worked, at least for Mason Plumley.
Mason is a great guy. So when he came, so my grandpa is he's like a shooting coach, and Mason comes over to my house. I'm like 12. And he comes over, we hang out a little bit. He does like a 3-hour workout, and his mom comes, his sister comes. It was really super cool. And so then, I go to, I think it's the same year that Louisville and Duke are in the Sweet 16. It's in Indianapolis, and I go, and obviously I go to practice, and Mason's there, and I yell at him I'm like off the court, and they're on the floor, and I'm like, hey, you Mason, I'm yelling at him, and he recognizes me, and he goes, hey, meet me at the mall after the game or after the practice, and I'll catch you there. And I said, okay, cool. So I go to the mall, and I see him, and he introduces me to everybody. Everybody's pretty like down to earth. I'm like, oh wow, he's pretty small. Wow, I can't believe he plays Division I. He plays at Duke. I didn't know that. and then like the next Christmas, he sends me a big poster of the whole Duke team, and the whole Duke team signed it.
Oh, that's
So that's
awesome.
pretty cool.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
Mason's
That's really cool.
he's a good guy, but I'm I'm not surprised that he did that though. That's good.
Yeah. I mean, my little asterisk for that advice is it worked for Mason Plumley. Results not
Hey,
guaranteed, but Mason Plumley, it's good. But
whatever works.
yeah, absolutely. But back to your question, yeah. So for the first 2 seasons, they picked 10 locations. Each game went on every Saturday. So I was there for one of those events again in Brooklyn. That was for the first season. And I will say that although it was cool where sort of one game finished and then the next game started and then the next game started and the next game started, there were a total of 8 teams and every team played. So it was a long day. Like it was fun. Don't get me wrong. Like it was cool, but you got out of there. I mean, you had 4 teams playing a 60 and it plus I think there was like a halftime like performance. And it was a long day. You definitely went home tired. It was much longer than an average NBA game. And then in 2019, the way they did it was they extended it to 12 teams. So they split it up. So they had 6 teams in one city on Saturday, and then another 6 teams in like an adjacent close city on Sunday. So like they did like Providence, Rhode Island, and New York. They did, I think it was Oakland and LA, sort of like that.
Yeah.
This year, they announced that they were going back to 2020, they announced that they were going back to the original format. So it was going to be 6 games all one day, and they said it was basically going to be this for lack of a better term, like a traveling like festival or like carnival, where they would have like musical performances and like I guess like food trucks and stuff. So they were really sort of honing in on the fact that you weren't there just to watch basketball. It was sort of like this whole event you're taking your family to. So I was really excited for that, even though, I was interested to see how that worked out because, 6 basketball games, playing a 50 now, it's a lot. Especially for not just for viewing it, but for broadcasting. So I was interested to see how it worked out. So I really don't know what the plan is for next summer for 2021, but it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, no, I think that basketball is entertainment. People want to be entertained, and I think that's what the Big Three market, is trying to do. And same way with TBL. We have 2 goals. A, community engagement. B, help these players. And so with the community engagement, it's we want everybody to come in, right? But just because we're playing basketball doesn't mean everybody's going to come and watch.
Mhm.
So as like the Big Three, so for TBL, it's we got little kids coming in, maybe playing half-time games. You got dancers, this and that. A great team that does it is Albany, kind of close to you. I don't know how close you are to Albany. What, 3 hours?
Yeah, probably like 3 hours away. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So same thing. Like they do a great job of entertainment. They have halftime shows. They have dancers. They have alcohol sales. They have it's an event. That's a fun event to take your family to. And so a lot of the teams are starting to pick up on that. And as the year went on, right before COVID, teams started to do a better job. And I think this year, as things start to get rolling, it'll be about the same. Have you been to a TBL game?
I have not, unfortunately, been to a TBL game yet. But that's definitely something that I look forward to. I really wanted to. It's funny. I was looking into going to one of the tryouts, but I think the closest tryout to me was Boston. But no, that's absolutely something that I've been eyeing for a while.
Yeah, it'd be pretty cool. There's a draft combine, I think, in January in Indianapolis.
Oh, okay.
You'll graduate this year or next year?
I'm graduating in November.
Oh, same here.
So.
Hey, we're
Nice.
Home stretch, baby. Home stretch.
Absolutely.
So there's a combine in Indianapolis that all the teams come to. Last year they had like 300 players. It was great too. I mean, high level players, guys that played Oklahoma, Oregon, from everywhere. So yeah, you have to come to that one, man. That'll be a ton of fun.
For sure.
Do some media access stuff. But I did want to touch on. I think that in the next few years that there's going to be a little more crossover between Big Three and TBL, just because of both leagues are expanding so fast, and they play. I think when does the Big Three season start?
Well, it's interesting. Historically, it always started usually like end of June and then went to beginning of September. but I know that they said that their number one priority is to not overlap with the NBA. So right now we're sort of waiting for the NBA to kind of, to tell us for better or for worse when we're starting, when they start. So if they start in January, it might be pushed back into midsummer, early fall.
Well, I mean, with the timing of that and then the timing of the NBA season, I do think the TBL will have a little bit of crossover. Guys probably wanting to stay in shape for Big Three or maybe, even play and extend their careers. I'm curious, are there guys that play in Big Three that end up playing again in the NBA or playing again overseas?
Yeah, so there's a ton of guys that play overseas. Guys basically like every captain, usually plays overseas. Guys like Mario Chalmers, Mike Taylor. Most people, I would say the majority of people go overseas to play. James White was another one. He was in Italy. He was doing a really good job. The main people, though, that went back to the NBA, Joe Johnson was obviously a big story with Detroit last year. Who else? Josh Childress was the first. He got a camp invite to Denver. I think he played preseason for them. And then Xavier Silas played with the Boston Celtics in, I want to say, 2018 after Kyrie Irving got hurt. So then they moved up. Who was that? Terry Rozier to starting point guard, and then Xavier Silas was backup point guard. And then we all know how that story went.
Oops. No, Joe Johnson is there was an Indy sports writer that called me after the Big Three was here in Indy, and he was like, "Hey, I was like, hey, what happened? Blah blah blah. Is there anybody that's good that can play?" And he says, "Yeah, Joe Johnson could play in the NBA still." And I'm like, he's like, was he like 38, 36? Yeah, I mean, God, he's incredible.
Yeah.
He's probably my favorite. Like growing up, he was my favorite player outside of Carmelo Anthony.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, if I got a chance to see him play or watch him, that'd be incredible.
Yeah, I mean, Joe Johnson, I was lucky enough where I got the opportunity to watch Joe Johnson. And again, one of those guys that he's very quiet, he's very to himself, he's very reserved, but it's not like an arrogant, I'm just not going to say anything to anybody. He's just that humble. He's just that down to earth. You know what I mean? Everybody who plays with him loves him. I got the opportunity to see him play, and he was just, leagues above just about. He made everybody look like he proved that he should still be in the NBA. When you watched him in the Big Three, you were like, what is this guy doing here? That's how good he was. But it was absolutely crazy. And then getting the opportunity to meet him post game and ask him a couple questions. He was the absolutely nicest guy. And he, then he played in the TBT this summer, which was really cool to see. We were trying to get a Big Three TBT team going, so that was a really cool process. And we really wanted Joe Johnson, but then Joe Johnson was his overseas elite, and it didn't really work out towards the end. But Joe, from the impression that I've gotten from everybody that I've met that knows him, and from the brief encounters I've had with him, he just wants to play basketball 24/7. If you're shooting basketballs, if you're around, he'll be there.
He's a hooper, man.
He's a hooper. 100%.
He's a hooper. Well, this is my favorite part of the show. I don't know if have you watched the show before?
I've not.
We gotta get you out, man. I'm gonna edit that out. Watched every episode.
Every episode.
Every episode. So this is the speed round. So you got 1 minute. I think the record is 16 questions. I don't know who has a record, but it's there somewhere. I have it in my notes.
Okay.
So you have 1 minute. You're gonna answer as many questions as possible. I'm giving you no context, and you just gotta fire them off. All right.
Are these is there a correct answer to this? Or is it just my opinion? Oh, all right. Are you not even going to tell me that? All right.
I don't know.
All right.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
First question's a doozy. 3, 2, 1. What's your favorite team in Big Three?
A Power. But I'm not allowed to say that. I'm biased. I'm unbiased. Power.
What's your favorite gym in NYC?
Oh, in NYC. Oh, my God. It's got to be – what's the one that they all train at? That gym, right? Oh, my God. What is it called?
Is it Brickley's gym?
Yeah, Brickley's gym. There you go.
Okay. What's your favorite gym in general in the whole world?
I mean, my favorite gym in general, there's a rec league that I played with growing up. My brother plays at, so they have a basketball court. So it's not really a gym, but that's my favorite court.
What's your favorite place to visit?
Oh, man. There's a barrier island off the coast of Long Island. We call it Fire Island, and it's beautiful, and I love it. It's right close to my house, right there.
What's the best basketball game you've ever seen?
Oh my God. Well, the two I would say the tie is I was at Nets Miami game. I want to say it was 4 back when they had Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett, and like they hit all those threes, and seeing LeBron angry and so off the court, that was awesome. And then seeing Sixers Nets game 3 when everyone got into a fight, that was really cool.
Oh, it is cool. That was time though.
Ah,
Those are really drawn out well questions. I know you go to Iona. They taught you well up there.
thank you.
1,
You know,
2, 3, 4, 5. It's good. Those are good answers. Those quality answers.
What's the record? Do we know the record?
16.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right. But listen, I will say this though: 16, is that person giving you full answers?
Oh no.
That's
No.
what I mean.
You rattle them off. That's how you get good, man. You just gotta rattle them off.
Man. But like,
Yeah.
I'm trying to like, explain it. So you walk away with something,
Yeah.
When someone's like, what was Will's favorite game? You're like, oh, the Sixers and Nets one where they got into a fight. I was like, that's Sixers.
Yeah, exactly. Well, good deal. Well, all right, Will, I appreciate you coming on the show. Thanks to all the listeners that came out today. Big news coming soon. We got our first ever sponsor, so stay tuned for that. Thanks again.
Thank you for having me.